Taubman. Mr. Taubman? Okay, Dr. Steve Pergam.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Sheldon Taubman. I'm an attorney. I represent low-income clients mostly in the health area. I'm employed by New Haven Legal Assistance Association, although I'm here today in my personal capacity as a consumer representative.
Great. Dr. Steve Pergam.
Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Pergam. I'm an associate professor at the University of Washington and Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center, and I focus on infectious diseases.
Mike, can we go to the next slide, please? Great. Dr. Fuller, Ovita Fuller.
I'm Ovita Fuller. Good morning. I'm Ovita Fuller. I'm an associate professor of microbiology and immunology at the University of Michigan Medical School and a member of the African Studies Center in the International Institute, and I'm a virologist by training.
Great. Dr. Kim, Captain Kim.
Good morning, David Kim. I'm the Director of the Division of Vaccines at the Office of Infectious Disease and HIV/AIDS Policy under the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Health.
Great. Dr. Eric Rubin.
Hi, I'm Eric Rubin. I'm editor-in-chief of the New England Journal of Medicine, a professor at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, and an infectious disease clinician at the Brigham and Women's Hospital.
Excellent. Dr. James Hildreth.
Good morning. I'm James Hildreth. I'm the president and CEO of Meharry Medical College, a professor of internal medicine. I'm a viral immunologist by training. Thank you.
Great. Dr. Janet Lee.
Good morning. I'm Jeanette Lee. I'm a professor of biostatistics at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences.
Great. Next slide, please. Dr. Juan Banacloc.
Good morning. I'm Juan G. Banacloche. I'm an infectious diseases clinician at the Mayo Clinic in Phoenix, Arizona.
Great. Dr. Mark Sawyer.
Good morning. I'm Mark Sawyer. I'm a professor of pediatrics at the University of California, San Diego, and radiation in San Diego, and I'm a pediatric infectious disease specialist.
Excellent. Dr. Melinda Watson.
Good morning. I'm Melinda Horton. I'm an adult infectious disease physician by training, and I'm director of the Immunization Services Division at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Great, thank you. Dr. Ofer Levy.
Good morning. My name is Ofer Levy. I'm the director of the Precision Vaccines Program at Boston Children's Hospital and professor of pediatrics at Harvard Medical School.
Great. Dr. Pamela McInnes.
I'm Pamela McInnes, retired Deputy Director of the National Center for Advancing Translational Sciences at the National Institutes of Health. Good morning.
Great. Dr. Patrick Moore.
Good morning. I'm Patrick Moore. I'm at the University of Pittsburgh Cancer Institute and the Department of Microbiology and Molecular Genetics.
Great. Dr. Ralph Tripp.
Good morning. I'm Ralph Tripp from the University of Georgia. I'm a chair of vaccine therapeutics there.
Okay. Dr. Stanley Perlman. We can't hear you, Dr. Berman. Mike, can you adjust the volume?
Yes, good morning. I am Dr. Stanley Perlman from the University of Iowa in the Department of Microbiology and Immunology and in Pediatric Infectious Diseases, and I'm a long-term coronavirologist.
Great. I think Dr. Amanda Cohn is available. Can she introduce herself just for a second? We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good morning. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm Captain Amanda Cohn, a Chief Medical Officer of the National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases, and a pediatrician by training with expertise in vaccines and pediatrics.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's now introduce introductions of the FDA staff. First, I would like to introduce Dr. Peter Marks, the head of the Center for Biologics. Dr. Marks.
Hi, so thanks very much. Peter Marks, Director, Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research, and I just want to take a moment to thank all of the committee members as well as everybody who's tuning in right now who might not usually be viewing our usually sedate vaccines and related biologics products advisory committee meetings. Thanks very much.
Excellent. Let's move on to Dr. Marianne Gruber, Director of the Office of the Vaccines at CBER.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Marianne Gruber, and I'm the Director of the Office of Vaccines Research and Review in the Center for Biologics and Research at FDA. And on behalf of my colleagues in the Office of Vaccines, I also would like to welcome the committee members, Pfizer-BioNTech, as well as the public to today's meeting. I would like to take the opportunity to thank the members of this committee for taking time out of their busy schedule to provide their perspectives, their recommendations, and advice regarding the adequacy of the scientific evidence that will be presented by Pfizer and the FDA today to support a determination whether the benefits of Pfizer-BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine outweigh its risks to support authorization of this product under an EUA. FDA very much appreciates the committee's input on this very important topic, and I look forward to today's discussion. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Gruber. Now I would like to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Celia Witten, Deputy Director of CBER, and also Dr. Philip Krause, Deputy Director of Office of Vaccines, who may join later making remarks. So I will now proceed with the conflict of interest statement. Okay, so the Food and Drug Administration is convening virtually today, December 10th, 2020, the 162nd meeting of the Vaccines and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee under the authority of the Federal Advisory Committee Act of 1972. Dr. Arnold Manto is serving as the acting voting chair for this meeting. Today on December 10th, 2020, the committee will meet in open session to discuss the emergency use authorization, EUA, of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine for the prevention of COVID-19 in individuals 16 years of age and older. The topic is determined to be a particular matter involving specific parties. With the exception of industry representative member, all standing and temporary voting members of the WERPAC are appointed special government employees or regular government employees from other agencies and are subjected to federal conflicts of interest laws and regulations. The following information on the status of this committee's compliance with federal ethics and conflict of interest laws, including but not limited to 18 United States Code Section 208, is being provided to participants in today's meeting and to the public. Related to the discussions at this meeting, all members, regular government employees and special government employee consultants of this committee have been thoroughly screened for potential financial conflicts of interest of their own as well as those imputed to them, including those of their spouse are minor children, and for the purpose of 18 U.S. Code 208, their employers. These interests may include investments, consulting, expert witness testimony, contracts and grants, cooperative research and development agreements or CRADAs, teaching, speaking, writing, patents and royalties, and primary employment. These may include interests that are current or under negotiation. FDA has determined that all members of this advisory committee are in compliance with federal ethics and conflict of interest laws. Under 18 U.S.C. Section 208, Congress has authorized the FDA to grant waivers to special government employees and regular government employees who have financial conflicts of interest when it is determined that the agency's need for a special government employee services outweighs the potential for a conflict of interest created by the financial interest involved, or when the interest of the regular government employee is not so substantial as to be deemed likely to affect the integrity of the services with which the government may expect from the employee. We have the following consultants serving as temporary voting members today. They are Dr. Ovita Fuller, Dr. Juan Benacloc, Dr. James Hildreth, Captain David Kim, Janet Lee, Dr. Ofer Levy, Dr. Pamela McInnes, Patrick Moore, Dr. Stanley Perlman, Eric Rubin, Mark Sawyer, and Ralph Tripp, and Melinda Wharton. Based on today's agenda and all financial interests reported by committee members and consultants, there has been only one conflict of interest waiver issued under 18 U.S. Code 208 in connection with this meeting. Among these consultants, Dr. James Hildreth, a special government employee, has been issued a waiver for his participation in today's meeting. The waiver was already posted on FDA website for public disclosure. Dr. Paula Annunziato is currently serving as the industry representative to this committee. Dr. Annunziato is employed by Merck. Industry representatives are not appointed as special government employees and serve as non-voting members of the committee. Industry representative on this committee is not screened for their financial interests. Industry representatives act on behalf of all regulated industry and bring general industry perspective to the committee. Mr. Sheldon Taubman is serving as the consumer representative for this committee. Consumer representatives are appointed special government employees and are screened and cleared prior to their participation in the meeting. They are voting members of the committee. Today's meeting has multiple external speakers. We have 3 speakers from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. These are Dr. Nancy Masonia, Dr. Aaron Hall, Dr. Anita Patel. Regular government employees have all been screened for conflicts of interest and have been cleared to participate as speakers for today's meeting. The guest speaker for this meeting is Dr. Stephen Goodman, a professor of medicine and associate dean for clinical and translational research at Stanford University. He has been asked to disclose any financial interest he may have related to the product before the meeting. Disclosure of conflicts of interest for guest speakers follows all applicable federal laws, regulations, and FDA guidance. FDA encourages all meeting participants, including open public hearing speakers, to advise the committee of any financial relationships that they may have with any affected firm, its products, and if known, its direct competitors. We would like to remind standing and temporary members today that if the discussions involve any other products or firms not already on the agenda for which an FDA participant has a personal or imputed financial interest, the participants need to inform the DFO and exclude themselves from such involvement, and their exclusion will be noted for the record. This concludes my reading of the conflicts of interest statement for the public record. At this time, I would like to hand over the meeting to our chair, Dr. Manto. Thank you very much. Dr. Manto?
Thank you, Prabha. Here I am. Technical issues, which are going to be one of our biggest problems, I predict, during the day. Thank you for getting the meeting kicked off. I'd like first, and we're actually running a little early, to call on Dr. Dharan Singh of the FDA to talk about the situation that we are facing and the presentation of a description of the emergency use authorization. Dr. Fink.
Good morning. I'm Doran Fink. I'm the Deputy Director for Clinical Review in the Division of Vaccines and Related Products Applications within the Office of Vaccines Research and Review, Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research at FDA. The VRBPAC last convened on October 22nd of this year to discuss the development, licensure, and emergency use authorization of COVID-19 preventive vaccines. Since that meeting, COVID cases and associated hospitalizations and deaths have increased substantially in the U.S. and worldwide. On November 20th, Pfizer submitted an emergency use authorization request for the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine, otherwise known as BNT162b2. This is an mRNA and lipid nanoparticle vaccine administered as a 2-dose regimen 21 days apart. We'll be hearing more about the vaccine and its proposed use in later presentations. The use being requested for emergency authorization is for active immunization to prevent COVID-19 caused by SARS-CoV-2 in individuals 16 years of age and older. The information submitted with the request includes safety and efficacy data from a large, randomized, blinded, placebo-controlled phase 3 trial. And these data will be discussed in detail in our afternoon sessions. Today, we will be considering whether to make available to millions of Americans an as-yet investigational vaccine that has been developed, tested, and reviewed in record time, with additional testing still underway in ongoing studies. The American public demands and deserves a rigorous, comprehensive, and independent review of the data. And that's what FDA physicians and scientists, all of us career public health servants, have been doing over days, nights, weekends, and yes, over the Thanksgiving holiday. This is in addition to months of review work already completed on information previously submitted in preparation for an EUA request. FDA has been conducting its comprehensive review of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine EUA submission since its submission on November 20th. Our review has included verification of clinical data integrity, of Pfizer analyses, and also our own independent analyses using data sets that were provided in the submission. We have continued an ongoing review of chemistry, manufacturing, and control information, non-clinical data, and review of clinical assays, including information that was submitted shortly prior to the EUA request. We have been reviewing and revising, along with Pfizer, prescribing information and fact sheets for vaccine recipients and healthcare providers. These will be necessary to inform and instruct vaccine recipients and healthcare providers during use of the vaccine under EUA, and these materials are necessarily informed by our review of the data. We have sent and received back answers to multiple information requests addressed to Pfizer to clarify questions related to the data. And last but certainly not least, we have been preparing for today's VRBPAC meeting. Today's meeting, in which the committee will advise FDA with its own independent assessment of the data, continues FDA's commitment to an expedited review process that is transparent, scientifically sound, and data-driven. The legal authority for emergency use authorization was established in Section 564 of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. This legal authority allows for FDA authorization of unapproved medical products or unapproved uses of approved medical products to address public health emergencies related to biological, chemical, radiological, or nuclear agents. Issuance of an emergency use authorization requires prior determination of a threat and declaration of circumstances justifying the need for an EUA to address that threat by the Secretary of Homeland Security, Defense, or Health and Human Services. To that end, Health and Human Services Secretary Azar issued a declaration on March 27th of this year justifying emergency use authorization of drugs and biological products to address the COVID-19 pandemic. Once that declaration has been issued, there are 4 criteria that must be met in order to issue an EUA. First of all, the agent referred to in the EUA declaration can cause a serious or life-threatening disease or condition. We know this to be true for SARS coronavirus 2 and COVID-19. The second and third criteria are closely linked. There must be a reason to believe that the medical product may be effective to prevent, diagnose, or treat the serious or life-threatening condition caused by the agent, and the known and potential benefits of the product should outweigh the known and potential risks of the product. There are special considerations for a COVID-19 vaccine anticipated for widespread deployment to millions of individuals, and these will be discussed on my next slides. The final criterion is that there should be no adequate, approved, and available alternative to the product for diagnosing, preventing, or treating the disease or condition. At this time, the only FDA-approved product for COVID-19 is remdesivir. This is an antiviral agent that is approved for treatment of COVID-19, not prevention. Additional products have been issued under emergency use authorization but have not been FDA approved, and none of these products is authorized for use to prevent COVID-19. Thus, at this time, there is no adequate, approved, and available alternative to a COVID-19 vaccine for preventing COVID-19 caused by SARS coronavirus 2. In October of this year, FDA released guidance outlining our expectations for submissions requesting emergency use authorization of COVID-19 vaccines. And these expectations were discussed at the VRBPAC meeting in October. There are 3 main areas covered by our expectations. First, data to demonstrate manufacturing quality and consistency. FDA has reviewed the manufacturing quality and consistency data for the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine and found it adequate to support emergency use authorization of the vaccine. This will not be discussed in detail further at this meeting. Second, we expect clear and compelling safety and efficacy data to support a favorable benefit-risk of the vaccine when rapidly deployed for administration to millions of individuals, including healthy people. And finally, we expect plans for further evaluation of the vaccine safety and effectiveness, including in ongoing clinical trials, active and passive safety monitoring during their use under EUA, as well as observational studies. In terms of clinical data expected to support an EUA submission for a COVID-19 vaccine, we expect a high bar for efficacy. Efficacy data from at least one well-designed phase 3 trial should demonstrate protection against SARS-CoV-2 infection or disease with a point estimate of at least 50% compared to a placebo. Additionally, the appropriately alpha-adjusted confidence interval lower bound around that point estimate should be greater than 30%. This is to ensure that a widely deployed COVID-19 vaccine will have an appreciable impact. In terms of safety data, we expect these data from throughout clinical development to evaluate reactogenicity, serious adverse events, and adverse events of special interest. And we expect that a high proportion of phase 3 study subjects will have been followed for at least 1 month after completion of the full vaccination regimen. We have an additional expectation for follow-up that I will explain on my next slide. We also expect to be able to review sufficient cases of severe COVID-19 that have occurred in clinical trial participants to assess for signals of enhanced disease, and also, if possible, to assess for preliminary evidence of protection against severe disease. We recognize that a planned case-driven interim efficacy analysis and associated safety analyses at the same time could provide data to support an emergency use authorization. We have explained that we expect these analyses to include a median follow-up duration of at least 2 months after completion of the full vaccination regimen. The reasons for this expectation are that, first of all, it allows time for potential immune-mediated adverse events to be evaluated, understanding that uncommon but clinically significant immune-mediated adverse events to preventive vaccines generally have onset within the first 6 weeks following vaccination. A median follow-up of 2 months also ensures that vaccine efficacy is assessed during the time when adaptive and/or memory immune responses, rather than innate responses, are mediating protection. And finally, this follow-up period allows for early assessment of waning protection and for assessment of signals of enhanced disease. Following issuance of an EUA for a COVID-19 vaccine, we understand and expect that further vaccine evaluation would be needed for ongoing benefit risk assessment to support continuation of the EUA. But equally important, further vaccine evaluation would be needed to accrue additional data to support licensure of the vaccine as soon as possible and/or to inform labeling. This further vaccine evaluation following issuance of an EUA would include longer-term follow-up for safety, including in larger numbers of vaccine recipients and in populations with lower representation than in clinical trials. Further evaluation would also allow for more precise estimation of vaccine effectiveness in specific populations and more robust assessment of effectiveness against specific aspects of SARS coronavirus 2 infection or disease, for example, asymptomatic infection. This further evaluation would also characterize the duration of protection, could investigate immune biomarkers that might predict protection, and of course would be ongoing monitoring for signals of enhanced disease. Issuance of an EUA for a COVID-19 vaccine would be contingent upon the ability to conduct further vaccine evaluation, which would occur through a combination of active follow-up of vaccine recipients under the EUA, passive monitoring for clinically significant adverse reactions using established reporting mechanisms, for example, the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, observational studies, including those that leverage healthcare claims databases, and finally, continuation of blinded, placebo-controlled follow-up in ongoing clinical trials for as long as is feasible, and strategies to handle loss of follow-up in those trials. We acknowledge that placebo-controlled blinded follow-up cannot continue indefinitely as more information about a vaccine's safety and effectiveness becomes available. However, FDA does not consider issuance of an EUA for a COVID-19 vaccine to necessitate immediate unblinding of ongoing clinical trials or offering vaccine to all placebo recipients. Of course, trial participants may choose to withdraw from follow-up for any reason, including to receive vaccine made available under EUA. And it may be possible to offer vaccine to placebo recipients in clinical trials in a reasonable time frame that doesn't compromise the integrity of the clinical trial. And these considerations will be discussed further this morning. When an EUA is issued for a COVID-19 vaccine, it will specify conditions of use for which benefit risk has been determined to be favorable based on review of the totality of available data, including those populations to be included or excluded from the EUA, conditions for vaccine distribution and administration, and requirements for safety monitoring and reporting of adverse events. Vaccine made available under an EUA will also include provision of information to vaccine recipients and healthcare providers via prescribing information and fact sheets. These materials will describe that the product remains investigational, will inform about the known and potential benefits and risks, and will also make clear what are the available alternatives and the option to refuse vaccination. Once issued, an EUA may be revised or revoked for a number of reasons. First of all, if circumstances justifying the EUA no longer exist. Second, if criteria for issuance are no longer met. And third, for any other circumstances that arise that warrant changes necessary to protect public health or safety. These other circumstances may be based on new information concerning vaccine safety or effectiveness, vaccine manufacturing or quality, or COVID-19 epidemiology or pathogenesis. The agenda for today's VRBPAC meeting will include, following the conclusion of my talk, first, 3 presentations from the CDC, providing an update on COVID-19 epidemiology, plans for vaccine safety and effectiveness monitoring under an EUA, and operational distribution plans for the vaccine under an EUA. We will then hear about considerations for placebo-controlled trial design if an unlicensed vaccine becomes available. Following lunch, we will have an open public hearing, and then we'll dive into a discussion of the data. First, with a presentation by Pfizer, and then an FDA presentation. At the end of the day, we will have a committee discussion and a vote. We have 2 questions that we would like the committee to consider for discussion. These will not be voting questions. First, Pfizer has proposed a plan for continuation of blinded placebo-controlled follow-up in ongoing trials if the vaccine were made available under EUA. We would like the committee to discuss Pfizer's plan, including how loss of blinded placebo-controlled follow-up in ongoing trials should be addressed. Second, we would like the committee to discuss any gaps in plans described today and in the briefing documents for further evaluation of vaccine safety and effectiveness in populations who receive the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine under an EUA. Following discussion of these items, we will have a single question for the committee to vote on. The question is, based on the totality of scientific evidence available, do the benefits of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine outweigh its risks for use in individuals 16 years of age and older? This concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Fink, for a very clear presentation. We have a fair amount of time before the next scheduled presentation, which is very good because I think there are some questions of clarification that the committee may have about our guidelines for discussion and for our eventual vote. So committee members, please raise your hands if you would like to ask Dr. Fink some specific questions. We don't want to start our discussion of the points raised by Dr. Fink, but just clarification about the characteristics of an emergency use authorization and the other guidelines. So please raise your hand. I may be having some technical difficulties. So Mike, you may need to recognize the participant. Go ahead.
No problem. All right, the first one we have is Dr. Sawyer. Would you go ahead and turn your camera on?
Thanks very much, Dr. Fink. You mentioned that issues related to manufacturing can be one of the reasons to revise or revoke an EUA. What is the monitoring process going forward from this point with regard to manufacturing process?
Thank you. So FDA continues to engage with the vaccine manufacturer concerning manufacturing quality and control issues to ensure that these remain adequate to support use of the vaccine under EUA. I'll invite any of my other FDA colleagues to comment further.
Yeah, this is Marion. Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. So no, I just wanted to second what Doran just said. It is true that the monitoring of the CMC, that is the chemistry, manufacturing, and control information, that is currently available and will, and we of course will get additional data from the manufacturing, from the different manufacturing sites. We will review this information and we will work together with the vaccine manufacturer to make sure that the product that is made and generated is of adequate consistency and quality. So this is work that's going to be ongoing over the next month.
Thanks very much.
Okay, Arnold, are you able to see the, yep, Arnold, are you able to
No,
see the
I
attendee
can't.
list?
That side of my screen I see, but no, there's no activity there.
Okay, that's all right. So, while you
why don't you manage the calling on?
We'll take care of that.
Right.
All right, Dr. Corella?
You. I don't know why my camera is not working, but it says it's on. Doran, just trying to understand the question we're being asked to vote on is what Pfizer has requested, but if I understood your talk correctly, the FDA can limit the actual can place limits on the target populations or the specific indications regarding the EUA. My question is, how do you view the investigational status of the product under an EUA?
Thank you for the question. So a product that is made available under an EUA is an unapproved product. It has not been FDA licensed.
So let me just, if I can just follow up with that. So if you limited the EUA to a specific set of populations, even those populations that have the EUA, placebo-controlled trials would still be possible?
Well, we will have a discussion on those considerations later this morning, but in FDA's view, issuance of an EUA for a COVID-19 vaccine should not preclude the conduct of placebo-controlled trials. In particular, in situations where that vaccine made available under an EUA is available only in limited quantity.
Okay, I think I can see now. Thank you for fixing it. Dr. Lee.
So thank you. One of the questions I have is a little bit more general. I recognize we're considering